Just a quick post-editing note before all of this. Apologies for the minimal amount of imagery used in this video, but that's not what's important about it. There is some stuff to show off here, but it's mainly going to be bits of text here and there to either correct certain things I might have said wrong, or explain certain bits and pieces even better. Just wanted to let you know about this in advance. It's supposed to be more an informative video than anything. Anyway, let's get this show on the road, shall we? Howdy folks, SheyGrell here. Many apologies if this is going to be a lengthy video, only there's a lot to talk about in one go. Also, if certain parts of this are going to sound inconsistent, it's because I had to mix and match and kind of put stuff in different places. I'm gonna mention at both the start and the end of this video, if anyone has been up to date with what's been happening on my channel, could you please give this video a like or a share? I'm not really gonna bother asking for the favorite thing, cause I don't know, that for some reason that just feels really weird. Just a like and a share, or both. This is a nutshell explanation here and should be a lot more comprehensive. And as you might have guessed, there's not gonna be much panic to this. This is the explanation that I would be okay with showing everyone. As said, there is a lot to talk about here, so rather than trying to start with current affairs and moving back, let's start from the very beginning. It's time you had an explanation that is going to be a lot easier to follow than 7 videos worth. So, to start from the beginning, we need a bit of backstory on me. Hi, name's SheyGrell. I'm a content creator on here, but like many it seems, suffer from problems such as depression and anxiety. I can already imagine a lot of cynics out there going, "Oh boy, another one!" So if there's already some doubtful thoughts popping up about this, I'm gonna have to politely ask that you just hold off until the end of this video. Now when I say depression and anxiety, I don't just mean the common interpretation of just feeling a little bit sad and sorry for yourself. This is an incredibly real problem that can be pretty much crippling in certain situations. I mean, there's this whole issue of fighting off harsh emotions towards yourself on a daily basis whilst trying to do normal things. Anyone else who suffers or has suffered from these problems before will know it can actually be exhausting. It can leave things feeling very cold, empty, and just very spacious. You can be next to somebody, yet you can feel like you're sealed off behind a brick wall. Imagine going through that on a daily basis until you just get so sick of yourself you become more and more secluded. Ergo, exhibit Shay. You see what I did there? Oh, come on, it's a serious subject. I'm trying to be a bit more jolly about this. There's a lot of misunderstanding that goes about concerning the issues of depression and anxiety. To anyone that truly does believe that just because they felt sad at some point last week, that means they're depressed, I urge you to educate yourself. Depression isn't just about feeling sad. It's about the brain being ill-equipped to produce the right chemical balance that makes a normal person. And that is an honest medical fact there. Granted, that is one of the more worst-case scenario deals, but there are several layers to depression and none of them should be taken lightly. It's not just a case of somebody's life going downhill or them feeling bad about something that happened recently. It's a case of their brain physically changing the way it's hardwired. It starves itself of certain chemicals, the I'm happy elements. I have had these problems for, no joke here, the majority of my life. I'm not kidding here. I've dealt with these kind of issues since before my age was double digits. You think I'm kidding? Well, I'm not. I've always been a bit funny since a very early age. I fell behind in every class because I was just panicking that I couldn't keep up. It made me feel pressured, and it just led to me breaking down. And because of how wrong the education system is or has been in this country, I was often made an example of. For goodness sake, it's not that hard, just get over yourself, man up already. Putting up with things like that from the staff, whilst getting bullied by several of the pupils, does kinda take its toll on you. So yes, just for the record, I was one of those heavily bullied types because I had problems. Once again, I can see several kinds of cynical comments along the lines of, "You're not the only one going through this, so get over it." But if there is anyone who can relate to this stuff, then please, I implore you, don't let views like that dominate you. There are more people in this world that understand than you think. So because of this multi-layered mess that is a whole bunch of problems for me, I don't just find it very difficult to work under normal circumstances, such as in retail or in an office. For me, my problems kind of make that impossible. If not in the future, at least in the moment. The complication here is that as much as it can benefit somebody to have someone else around to talk about this stuff with, this level of problems kind of goes beyond that. Remember what I said about the brain changing the way it's hardwired? None of the outbursts and lack of control over my emotions is not something I deem willing. I mean, granted, I do struggle to try and keep control over them. Remember the whole bit about having to put up with this on a daily basis. Yes, it is advisable to grow a thick skin, but need I remind you here that thick does not mean impenetrable. Sooner or later, you're gonna break under the right, or rather the wrong, circumstances. Anyway, avoiding sidetracking myself here. The fact that I can't deal with working under normal circumstances means that I am pretty much incapable of work. At least, normal work. Because of this, I was on a government-funded system known as benefits in this country or welfare in the US. And I would like to start this section by making it very clear to you. I know it's no way to live. Believe me, I honestly can't think of any kind of dignity there is to it. And please, upon hearing that comment, don't think that I'm trying to take away from other people who have to do this. That's not the aim here, and it's not the fault of the people who have to do it. They're at the mercy of a system that's devised by people who have no idea how reality works. I should know, having been on it for 5 years myself. To make things worse, the requirements for being on these kinds of benefits have gotten more and more ludicrous. I seldom joke when I say that all in all, the system isn't just broken, it's outright crooked. The Department for Work and Pensions is a vicious cycle. Such an example of the requirements getting more unreasonable. I happened to fail my medical examination after 5 consecutive years of being recognized as somebody with problems. Why did I fail? Upon mentioning this, please understand that this is not scripted. I cannot make this up. And judging from previous feedback, I'm guessing that not a lot of people think this is too far-fetched either, especially if you have any experience with this. I failed the medical exam because, for a start, I was able to turn up to an appointment of which was obligatory. To quote one Ben Yahtzee Croshaw, I'll just give you a second to find your socks that just blew off there. But it gets better. The other reason I failed was because I was able to walk 10 meters from the waiting room to the examination room. For that, they deemed me perfectly capable of work. Anything I had to mention about my problems didn't mean a single thing to them. To make matters even worse still, here is an absolute bomb to drop you. Upon being kicked off of this system, you are asked if you wish to go through a process that is known as a mandatory reconsideration. They will give you a verdict, and then it will be taken a look at by somebody else. Once you have that, if it's refused again, you can actually launch an appeal yourself, as in, you can go to court and you can have somebody advocate for you. But you have to have that reconsideration in order to do so, and it has to happen within a month. I was asked twice if I wanted to go through with this, and I very quickly said yes. What did they do? Or more specifically, what didn't they do? Give me the reconsideration? They simply didn't put that request through. And now a month has passed, and by the time I received that verdict anyway, it was far too late. That is how serious this is. And that is when the panic began. Please understand that from this point on, my brain was kinda short-circuiting under the circumstances. The thing is that when they kick you off that system, they put you onto the regular level of benefits, which, without any trace of joking, is like being in school again. When you were on the benefits that I had, everyone within the organization known as the Job Center is so smiley and happy and helpful and friendly with you. But I kid you not, when you get kicked off and put onto the regular level of stuff, they drop the buddy-buddy act because you're suddenly their bitch. You're expected to dedicate the majority of hours of your day, pretty much every day, to pleasing their statistics. It takes no more than about an hour and a half to 2 hours at the most to search for all of the available jobs they have on their database. And how long do they expect you to stay in the building? 6 to 7 hours. You're not even allowed to leave the building to go and look for a job. Because again, the system is so tightly dependent on pleasing their tick boxes and statistics, this is how it is. And the absolute cherry on top here is that they can force you into any job they like, especially one that they've really taken to over the past couple or so years, unpaid voluntary work. And what makes this the icing on the cake is that the employer can choose to keep you for as long as they want. There's really not going to be any kind of witty punchline about that. It's a thing that happens. I've already suffered some panic attacks that nearly caused me to exit the building prematurely. I would also like to add for the record that, for the meantime, I have got a medical certificate that gives me exemption from this process. However, it's only a total of 3 months, and 1.5 months of that has gone by already. So as you might imagine, the clock is ticking. After the thankfully minimal interaction I've had with these people, the job centre that is, this has brought about the biggest turning point in my life. Here's why. For the 5 years I've been in this system, I've spent 3 of them working on this channel. I always aspired to be something like a voice actor. Seriously, I was one of those kids that always had a tape recorder nearby. You know, one of those types that always made really stupid news reports and just other goofy stuff. It's in my blood, people. I remember hearing this phrasing somewhere, I think it was from a series on YouTube, but it was some Chinese proverb that said practice bears only fruit. I've tackled various tasks, and I know I've gotten better at this. Thing is, I'm the type to scoff in the face of someone who says it can't be done. I don't care if I have a really cheap and horrible mic. I'm gonna do impressions of like half the cast in some web series. The world is my oyster! And then of course you get better and you learn some of the things that you've been doing wrong. But as you might guess from the sound of my voice, it does make me kinda happy to just reminisce about everything I've accomplished here. But at the same time, it makes me kinda sad and bitter as well, because it all comes back to the job centre again, and the Department for Work and Pensions. You know, those 2 companies I have to spout out the names of like I'm a parrot. It makes me sad because if this continues, if they get their way, and if I have to be put within this system, there's gonna be no more content from me. I won't have time, I won't have the motivation, I'm gonna be so numb and drained and, for lack of less dramatic wording, I'm gonna be broken. It's unbelievable how much they drop in your lap on your first day. What's even more ridiculous is that the job seekers system in general is a full-time job within itself. I don't mean that as a cynical remark either. It's actually got the same structure. And how none of these people can actually see that is beyond me. Although they probably can see but don't care because they're not on my side of the desk. Of which they seem to be blissfully unaware of. They could end up on that side just as easily as me. Or any of us. So 3 years of time, work, dedication, and even money that's gone into this channel is about to go south. I'm sure you could imagine I wasn't exactly doing well at that point. But something happened in my brain. Rather than giving up and going straight for any drastic options, I jumped into this here sound booth and I recorded, I think it was around an hour or so of panicky dialogue with heavy breathing and such. I wasn't even thinking of the time of making it all vloggy. I simply just stitched all the clumps together that I could in Audacity. So if anyone has heard that update, that's why it might sound like I'm quote-unquote putting on a show. That stuff is kept in because I wasn't thinking about making it sound professional at the time. I was thinking about getting an emergency message out to people. Desperation drove me to do something very embarrassing. Or rather, start something on very embarrassing terms. In comes the Patreon campaign. From the start, I have seen this as about my only option, and that's only become more apparent as time has gone by. Now, this whole campaign did have a different intent to it, but because of how it was presented on first impressions, I understand how it would just come across as some kind of charity work. So hopefully, here's to fixing that with a more fully fledged explanation. Concerning getting kicked off of the system and being screwed over in the sense that they simply didn't put my request to have a reconsideration through, I dare say there was a chance I could have gone to someone like a politician or a local law firm that would be able to help with this. But after 5 years of being on this nightmare of a system, my brain came up with another idea. I know I'm not the best voice actor, video editor, and audio engineer, but I have experience, and I know how to do things right. The thing is, I planned on releasing at least a couple more voiceover-related projects and then starting up the Patreon page and going, hey, this is kind of a thing on the side here. You know, if you wanted to help out, that would be much appreciated. You know, it was supposed to be something that would possibly slowly build up as I got the recognition. But as we all know, life has a massive habit of throwing curveballs. Ergo, things got stepped up by several notches. This has now become an appeal to make this kind of thing my job. And when it comes down to it, I don't just spend 15 minutes putting my videos together. If you'll forgive what must seem like an attempt to drag another YouTuber into this by name, there was a video I watched from one I Hate Everything that talked about his accounts of depression and anxiety, or rather, just anxiety. I don't actually remember him mentioning anything about that. There are so many details he mentions that just hits the nail on the head so perfectly. Things like my videos take quite a while to make because I'm a perfectionist. I know I'm not able to give my videos 100% polish with the software and hardware that I currently have, but I do try as damn hard as I can to make sure it's pretty damn close. On average, I'd say my videos take about a month to construct, but that's from working pretty damn solidly at it. I mean, take a look at this. It's the last voiceover-related project that I did. Soul Reaver 2. Do you see how many resources I had to put into that? Not only that, but I had to edit and post-process all of those sound effects one by one individually. And there's also this one, the comic dub I did for Undertale. But as you might see, this isn't 5 minutes of work here. This takes a lot of dedication, because I like to give this kind of stuff my best. But yes, on that part, long story short, I either try and make this my job, or it gets shut down. Not by me, but by all of the restraints that are about to be put on me. But since I'm bringing this stuff up, there is the biggest elephant in the room that I have to address. The state I was in when I started all of this. I was already going downhill and wasn't thinking in terms of professionalism, i.e. making proper updates that actually were coherent to listen to. I was in that state because I didn't know what else to do. And to be honest, I just thought it was going to instantly sink without a trace. But I'm very thankful to say that wasn't how it happened. People started responding, and people started helping me out. I will be honest, I'm not used to that kind of response. I'm really not. But from that point on, I would like you to imagine this scenario. There were two different sides of me that were quite literally racing against each other to reach some kind of conclusion. There was the side of me that knew in order to do this, I had to work and actually produce some evidence that I was worth investing in. And then there was the side of me that already believed that it was over. The angry and the saddened and the outright bitter little monster that is running around inside me. I would question if anybody is really going to take that out of context, but that'd be kind of awkward for this one, don't you think? I kept telling myself that if this was going to have any success, it wasn't going to be a speedy overnight process anyway. I knew that. I tried to keep that in mind, and I tried to keep a level head. But I kept having curveballs thrown at me by the job center that just meant this had become my one remaining option in order to actually do something with my life. Throughout the course of 2 weeks, it became apparent that that negative side of me was the one that was winning. Things just got further and further downhill, and I started snapping at friends and people who were trying to help. I've had some dark times in my life before, but what happened on this channel was possibly the single worst moment I've ever had, by far. And the fact it came out so publicly doesn't exactly make me feel any better either. But it did, and I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen. By the end of those 2 weeks, after how everything had slowed down by that point, I reached the end of my rope. My perspective had shrunk down to no bigger than the room I was in. For a short time, I truly felt like I was in a barren, desolate landscape. You know, the whole cold, empty and spacious feeling. I honestly felt as if all was lost. But if that was to be the end of me, I was not going to go quietly. In a moment of absolute genius, I made my declaration of how this was game over. Who knew that would make people freak out? I mean, God, it's only someone talking about their own death being a very real possibility. And I also see how it was deemed as a suicide note. That wasn't the case. I honestly expected this to be the end of the channel, and indeed, the end of me. The reaction it brought about, though, was something that I would say is very important. Vital, even. It brought about the change that you are hearing from me now. Anyone here familiar with the game Siren? Or more specifically, Siren Blood Curse? You know how, spoiler alert by the way, the game kind of goes in loops? Time repeats itself? I use Siren Blood Curse as an analogy and find it to be a rather good one because things truly did feel that messed up by the end of the loop. And now the reset button has been hit. And if I am indeed stuck in a loop of this, at least I'm at a point where I'm stronger. And now, after coming back from the single biggest meltdown I've ever endured in my life, the Patreon campaign is back up and running after seemingly being shut down. The thing is that with the 2 videos I've done recently to showcase what I'm capable of, I'm really hoping this is going to show that I'm not messing around here. This is a very urgent matter, and I need to get out of this situation. I'm asking to make this my job because of so many other reasons than it being something that is a dream to me. This is a chance to make something of this and have other people invited for that ride, but I can't do it alone. So once again, as I said near the start of this video, I'm going to ask anybody who believes me, who supports where I'm coming from on this, could you please give this a like and a share, just to help spread the word. Rather than a shambling wreck that's just asking for a way to escape the position he's in, this is supposed to be a legitimate appeal in order to do something worthwhile. I've actually been looking at different videos about various people's depression and anxiety of their own. Some of you might believe that I should feel embarrassed for how I've handled my problems, but after a lifetime of suffering quietly, I can't tell you how fortunate I feel to be coming forward about these problems in the midst of everyone else doing so. For the first time, this is some lucky timing on my part. So yes, if you could help spread the word by advertising this whole little campaign that's going on in the form of this update. I urge you, if you could please help me advertise this whole little campaign until people who might be interested in helping me out with funding, and would be willing of course, will hear this. I've tried to explain this as fully as I can. I do very much apologize if I've missed out any details, or if anything seems a bit off. With everything that's happened, it's hard to kind of mention everything in one go. But hopefully, at the very least, what I've said actually sticks with what's happened. You'll see that I'm not suddenly changing my story here. And if suspicions of that do start coming my way, well, fuck. Just a final note to anyone and everyone who has done their bit in trying to help out. Thank you so much for sticking with me even when I was at my very worst. But you deserve better from me, and that is what I am aiming to give you. And to anyone new to this, I really hope that you never have to go through these kinds of problems. And if you do, please, just remember, you're not alone. Thank you for your time. Until the next video, folks.